And there you go.
Hello, everyone. Hey, when everything demands your attention and your energy, but actually, where does your fire go? In this culture, we're somewhere between I'm busy and can we do this? That doesn't mean that we are not doing the most or anything like that. In a world that glorifies the hustle, we all know the hustle culture, constant notifications, conversations, protecting and reclaiming our energy and leading with intention, not only exhaustion. Now, let's talk about how we can not just lead, but live and grow without losing ourselves in this noise. My name is Candace Miles, but I go by Coach C, and I help women like you, sis, the ones who just stepped into leadership for the very first time, close the gap between who they are and how they show up at work. I give them the tools to shift from doing the work to actually confidently leading and doing the actual work without losing their voice, their values, or their authenticity. My lane, I'm just your first time, your GPS. That's what I always sit there and say. I am your GPS that help you to stop shrinking back, start standing tall, and own the rooms that you're in. But I'm not just here by myself. I'm here with my lovely co-host, Cynthia.
Hello, everyone. I bring you greetings as CEO, Chief Energy Officer of Transition to Infinite Possibilities, where I help corporate professionals elevate their energy as well as elevating in their careers, whether it is just navigating career changes, interview skills, or just how you get through that corporate life. That's what I'm here for. And I'm actually ready to dive on in, Candace, and we definitely represent two generations as we go through this topic. You'll hear us reference that. I represent Gen X, and Candace, you represent.
Millennials, the
Yes, yes, yes.
millennials.
So, so we're definitely ready to dive on in as we will periodically. You'll hear us talk about we want to light each other's torch, and that's what we're here to do as we hit this three-part series, right? As we go into Q4, we're talking about working through it. But for October, we're really hitting on when everything demands your attention, what's worth your fire. And like Candace
Mhm.
opened up saying, whether it's the inbox full of emails, whether it's that Microsoft Teams, if you use Slack or whatever it is that you use, and it's constantly ping, 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 it's too much. It's a lot of noise. And we're living in a world full of noise right now. So how are you navigating through it? How are you getting through this feeling of overload and this inability to focus, right? And I'll tell you from a Gen X perspective, it is hard to focus sometimes, even without the noise. But I'm just telling you, it is hard to focus sometimes. I'll tell you guys my one of my little secrets. I drink black tea that has L-theanine in it, and it's to help you focus. So that's my tip to you if you're dealing with this issue. But let's get to what's happening in the world, right? And how corporate America is feeling this. In our research, we found that according to Microsoft's 2025 Work Trend Index, that 68% of professionals say they struggle to find focus time, and 42% feel mentally exhausted by midday. Do you think there's some truth to that? If you are listening, put in the comments that you can definitely resonate with this experience here. If you're feeling like it's noon and you're already exhausted, I know personally, yes, it happens. It happens when you've had your black coffee or
Mhm.
your favorite latte and you've already had three or four different meetings, or you've already had 10 different employees come up to you with different issues that you have to address as a leader. It happens. And by midday, it's like, whew, I am tapped out and I can't focus. Candace, what about you? How have you kind of experienced that?
Yeah, for sure. And so from a millennial too, especially our elder millennials that have just hit their 40s. Uh, I definitely would sit there and say like midday is it just feels like I've done 100 million things and have gone nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like just really that they used to sit there and say, I don't even know if they use the terminology anymore about running in the whole little mouse, the little mouse race, the
Mm-hmm.
little mouse
Mm-hmm.
wheel.
The
Like
wheel.
that's literally, yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
mouse wheel. That's literally what it feels like sometimes, especially in leadership, because right now, let's just be real, a lot of companies, they are hiring a lot of seasonal people, if they have not already. So you have that caveat on top of just your day-to-day running, working with your teams and everything like that, that's added to it. And so it's hard to balance the two without overexerting yourself. But I know, like, for me personally, I stopped saying yes to things.
Mm-hmm.
I
That's
stopped saying yes
important.
to things.
That is important. I can say that I've watched over the years, employees, including myself, over the years, especially if you're starting out early in your career, you think that
Mhm.
um, doing everything, trying to be as responsive as possible, trying to take care of everything with a sense of urgency, trying to just do it all, and it turns into chaos. It turns into unnecessary busyness. And then it becomes a distraction, right? And so
Mhm.
if you find yourself as that employee who's just trying to do it all because you think that is meeting expectations, as they say in the performance world, right? How is that actually allowing you to show up? And that's the question you have to ask yourself. Am I operating in a space of just trying to do it all so that I'm seen as being the stellar employee? Or am I operating in a space that is really just draining me? I'm doing all
Mhm.
the things, but it's draining me so much that I'm not performing at my best. And you really have to pause and ask yourself that question. How am I showing up in this season of business, in this period of chaos, in all of the noise and the distraction, and then start to decipher through that, to start to distill what's really worth the extra energy, what
Mhm.
really needs to happen now versus what can I press the pause button on and come back to later. And I think that, as you excel in your career, you really have to build that muscle of discerning what's important now versus what
Mhm.
wait. And then the really really key strength is being able to say, you know this is going to take me a little while, or hey, is it something you need today or can it wait until tomorrow? And be okay with that.
Mhm.
You have to set those boundaries, like how you were saying. I've learned how to, not say yes to everything. It's a very critical part, or skill set, I should say, in one's career. And especially as you get through into your leadership role, or just a demanding role itself, you have to learn how to set those boundaries, especially in a world filled with distractions, in order to show up as your best self.
Yeah. Yeah, because I feel like, just to tap into that a little bit more, like saying yes became like a trauma response, essentially, for especially if you're a high achiever. If you're a high
Hmm.
achiever woman in leadership, particularly, or if you're just a high achieving employee, saying yes, especially in corporate, it meant that, hey, I'm earning my stripes right now. Like, I'm not indispensable. I can sit here, and when you it literally gets you into like this over functioning kind of mentality where no one can question where you sit or anything like that because you're constantly sit there saying yes. And then let's just be real, from a cultural standpoint, for our Black and brown women out there, we've we've been told like we don't want to become difficult or be seen as difficult or be seen as lazy or ungrateful if we say no.
Hmm.
We want
Hmm.
to be we want to be dependable, and valuable and everything like that. And so that's another thing, as we are getting into the well, we are in the last quarter of the year, and all these high expectations are coming towards you, all these high demands and everything like that. You have to take that step back and to realize, like, okay, am I going into survival mode?
Right.
Is this going to help me actually get to the next step? It's funny you sit there and say about the busy work. That's literally what we talked about in my last networking event. Sis, did you get that memo? It's coming again. Not to sit there and plug, but I'm plugging. It's coming again November 6th. But I talked about that in there, how sometimes when it comes to your boss, you know, we always look up to our leaders to always have our best interests. But sometimes what they're doing is offloading their busy work to you because it's simply something that they just don't want to do sometimes. Or it's maybe a task where they may be trying to sit there, but if it doesn't align to where you're trying to get to, that's where you also too have to take a step back and be like, okay, I'm stressing myself out. I'm exalting, like exerting myself to something that that's not even going to help me in my next step in my career. Like, you always got to think about your future. What is this helping me to my future?
Yeah. I think if we were to think about this also from the lens of burnout, right? Burnout is a constant theme that we hear from corporate professionals, from the average worker in America, right? Where
Yeah.
you're experiencing burnout, trying to tackle what's happening at work, tackle what's happening at home, and everything in between. And we had a series or a fireside chat once around visibility and the currency and how you value that. And when it comes to the busyness, I'm going to call it, all of the chaos and the distraction, sometimes it is the root of just wanting to be visible, to be seen.
Yeah.
And as
Mm-hmm.
you're navigating your career, most folks want to either be promoted or get hired for the next role or to get into that next leadership position. And sometimes they see that as the need to just be visible, be seen. And I'll be honest with you, what I have heard some leaders say and coach employees on is we need to increase your visibility without necessarily describing what that actually means or what the impacts of it will be. And what it tends to lead to is that employee just doing
Mm-hmm.
things
Mm-hmm.
constantly. And it's a constant churn, but it's not producing results. Right. And so you have to say, is this visibility exercise really worth the value of me being seen versus doing great work and making sure I'm able to tell my story so that my leader can tell my story and everyone else understands my value, right? So when you're in your career, you're navigating this journey, you have to have that spirit of discernment, I like to say, where you can discern visibility and the value of visibility versus the value of your work and how you can tell your story to where it is impactful, because there's a lot happening right now when you think about just the political climate, the workplace culture, the unspoken pressures of hybrid work, remote work versus going back into the office. There are a lot of
Mm-hmm.
dynamics out here, and folks are really trying to navigate that while being seen. And that desire to be seen is getting caught up in the distractions of noise and busyness and emails
Yeah.
and pings and demands. And like you said, the boss saying, hey, go do this. And some of that is just because there's nobody else to do it. We're operating at scale. We're in an environment where
Mm-hmm.
layoffs are happening time and time again. Every day you wake up, there's something in the news about another layoff. And that intense pressure has trickle down effects, and it is a lot of noise. And so how are you're listening here, how are you handling that? How are you handling the demands of the workplace that's creating so much pressure to the point of burnout? Do you
Yeah.
feel like you're trying to be seen a lot so that you're not the next one? Or are you able to position yourself where you can actually share your value proposition?
Yeah. And I was looking up really quick. I just read this article on Harvard Business Review this morning. But even to throw in AI. So
Right.
now, because a lot of people don't know exactly like how it's going to, a lot of people don't know what AI is in general, but they don't know how it's going to impact their job. So now you're even thinking about that silent employee that's not really there that could do your job 10 times faster than you, that you're now competing up against versus using it as a something to actually help you function in your role. It literally said that the AI adoption, it rises empathy in the workplace, but actually drops workers feel less understood, even though tech is speeding up. And so you're thinking about that too in there. Is
Mm.
that where is the empathy coming from? Your boss, like they want you to, hey, do this, do this, do this, do this, and you want to sit here and do this, but it's also too bringing in that silent employee. I literally just saw it, and I was talking to my cousin the other day, and I said, I wonder how long DoorDash drivers are going to be around, because DoorDash just implemented their dot person, their
Mm,
dot robot. And it's like, it reminds me of a cartoon, when the cartoon cars back in the day, but it had like the eyes that blinked and
yeah,
stuff on it for
yeah,
but it literally, they come out, they have a code, it opens up, and it's like, well, now you got to think about like futurifying that position. A lot of people went to DoorDash for flexibility. In 2 to 3 years, that may not even be your job.
yeah. So the question is, with all of these things happening in the world, the distractions, when everything is demanding your attention, you're trying to pay attention to the future of work, you're trying to pay attention to AI and the impacts on your role, which is going to be talked about in November, so stay tuned. And the emails and things like that. How do you not lose your fire? How do you maintain your motivation? How do you not get so caught up in the doing too much and feel good at just doing enough to maintain your mental health, to maintain a sense of self-worth, where you're not doubting yourself as you're trying to compete with all the demands that are out there demanding your attention? Right. So let's kind of shift a little bit to where, as my mother likes to say, it's not so much Debbie Downer. We're trying to uplift and light each other's torch, right? we want to highlight the pain for sure because it's a real thing.
Yes.
But we want to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that as you're listening to this, you can step away with things that are going to fuel your spirit, to really fuel
Practical.
you to go to the next level, to get back to work the next day. And it's like, you know what? Yes, I can do this. Yes, it's demanding, but yes, I can also get this done. And we want you to step away with feeling like your fire has been lit. You've been reignited to do all the things and not get drowned in the
Mm-hmm.
world of all these demanding expectations. So, one thing I like to say, and I say this a lot in some of my videos and captions, is just protecting your peace. Protecting
Mm-hmm.
your peace, whatever that looks like. Sometimes it might be stepping away for 10 minutes and going for a walk. Sometimes it might be having that intentional one-on-one with your leader. Right? I've heard people say, "Oh, we have this one-on-one in the calendar, but I don't know what I want to talk about." I don't even have anything to talk about with my leader.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest, there's a lot to talk about. The question is, what are you comfortable talking about? The question is, are you taking time to prepare for that one-on-one to discuss the things that are meaningful to you, that are meaningful to your progress in your career and your mental health, right? Things that are going to give you
Mm-hmm.
peace. And so the difficult conversation might just be, hey, we're in a space right now where it's a busy Q4. Here's what I'm going to need. Or Here's what would make this successful.
Yeah.
Talk about it. What is it? My favorite quote from Olivia Pope, what do you want? You have to be able to say, what do you want? And that
Yeah.
is to protect your peace, protect your boundaries, right? And go
Yeah.
in knowing what you want to ask for. So my one tip is to set your agenda with your next one-on-one with your boss. I don't care if it's a hallway chat, if it's a 15-minute coffee chat, or if it's a true 30-minute one-on-one conversation. Go in knowing what you want and how to go out in Q4 with the right set of boundaries so that you can balance through all the noise and the
Mhm.
distractions.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll add to that, because I think that there's still this myth that leaders have to be on 24/7.
Mhm.
You got to be available 24/7. But the best ones know how to pause. As you were talking about protect your energy, I was talking about Beyonce. Everybody know I'm a Beehive. If you don't know, I am a Beehive fan, a Beyonce fan. But if you think about, for her, she disappears to build. And so even in this busyness that's happening right now, you can still take that pause,
Mhm.
create distance before you actually move forward. There's so much power in stillness that we don't normalize this, especially this time of the year. Literally, what I used to incorporate would be like power hour Fridays, and I would just block it out to look and see what I've done through the week, look to see what is draining me, but also to figure out, okay, how do I want to move forward strategically? They always say work smarter, not harder. And so, in order to do that, sometimes you have to take that pause, when it comes to preparing for whatever that next is. So, I would also, too, by protecting your peace, what Cynthia just said, but also, too, you got to create it. And creating that is by that pause, that disappearing, that weekend that sometimes turn into a 7-day weekend for some people. Listen, those 2 days, that 48-hour break you get, that is a pause. Take it, especially this time of the
Exactly.
year.
Exactly. What it leads to, if I had to pull on the thread of protection, is protecting your
Mm-hmm.
time. And one of the things that is a pet peeve of mine is not respecting one's calendar. Think about corporate days. We all schedule meetings, but how many are actually looking to see when one is available? And how many times have you booked a meeting that conflicts? You know it conflicts with the other person's calendar,
Because
but
it
you're
tells
double
you.
booked.
Let's be
It
real.
tells you. It
It
tells you
tells
they're
you.
busy. It tells you if they're out of the office. It tells you all these things, but you
Mm-hmm.
still do it because what you need, you feel your need is more important. And so there's respecting time and there's protecting time, right? So
Mm-hmm.
my next thing is, if you're on the other end and you're wanting someone's time, protect their time, respect their time. And you block the time for your lunch, block the time in the morning to just get yourself established so you're not walking in and the first thing is a meeting. Block your time at the end of the day so that you can close out your day and not feel overwhelmed on your ride home or as you're trying to go pick up the kids or do the next thing after work. Protecting your time is so important. And
Yeah.
maybe it's, instead of a 1 hour meeting, make it a 50-minute meeting so that you have 10 minutes in between. Get discipline in protecting your time. It is something that we have to break this cycle, where we go with 30 minutes, 1 hour, 30 minutes, 1 hour. You can say what you need to say in 50 minutes if you're intentional.
Mm-hmm.
So while you're protecting your peace, protect your time and respect the other person's time is my
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah.
So we're getting closer towards the end of this segment, and we wanted to close out with I don't know why, but Auntie Maxine is coming in my head, Maxine, where she says, reclaiming your time, reclaiming my time, reclaiming my time. Yes. It is so important to reclaim control in this noisy world. And so, if that means shutting down social media for a little while just to clear your mind, not looking at emails the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning, if it's not responding to emails after 5 p.m., whatever it is that you need to do to be present at home, be present for yourself so that you can show up as your best self, reclaim it. Reclaim it.
Yeah.
You need to do that and not be distracted.
Yeah. And I would challenge you also too to think about what would leadership look like to you, not to anyone else, if you stop performing productivity and you started protecting your purpose. Your purpose, your why, whatever terminology you want to use. But when you think about why you're in this role, particularly leaders, why? That should always bring you back and center you by why you're doing it. And if you're now performing, because let's be real, there's a sense of performing. If you're now performing, take this pause, especially like what we're talking about now, the pause in the morning, protect your hours. In the morning, I have this thing where I don't talk to nobody. Everybody know I do not talk to anybody before 8 o'clock. Sometimes it's 9 o'clock a.m. my time, unless it is like super important, because that's my time from anywhere between starting at 3:30 a.m. I know that sounds crazy to some people, but yes, that is my time that I get up sometimes, 3:30 a.m. or 4 a.m. in the morning. Between that time, like and 8, you will not know how much you can get done when you intentionally focus on the things that is for you. No one else, it is for you. And so
Mhm.
think about that too, as we're ending this out, is you become the leader that you want to be. You just got to implement what it is that you want to do in order to become that leader.
Yeah. And I'd also say, as we pull back on the theme for today, um, start to ask yourself too, why do you feel that it's important to be so busy? Challenge your way of thinking, challenge your mindset. Why do you find yourself getting caught up in the email? Why do you find yourself feeling the need to be so reactive? Why do you find yourself feeling like you have to answer that ping within 30 seconds? Why do
Mm-hmm.
you feel rushed? Why do you have that
Yeah.
angst to be so reactive? And challenge your way of thinking around that. Are you trying to prove yourself to the boss, your peers? Is it a competitive nature and it's actually impacting you in a negative way? Challenge your
Yeah.
way of thinking and ask yourself, why do I feel the need to respond so soon?
Yes.
Why do I feel
Yes.
the need to be so reactive? Am I setting the bar here and the bar is not even there?
Where is
You
that? Where is
right.
it?
What
Like,
what? What's happening
where
right
is
now?
it?
Why am I challenging myself and I'm not showing up the way that I want to show up, right? So that's my quest to you today is to, if you find yourself in this busyness and distracted by all of the noise in the world, begin to challenge your way of thinking around, why am I doing this? What purpose is it serving for me? And as always, we like to close each segment with lighting the torch. But before we close out, I want to just remind everyone that we're closing Q4 with a 3-part series, and it's called Working Through It. So, as we're working through it, this first part is just really understanding where you're at in this season, what's taking up so much of your time, and making sure that you don't allow your fire to blow out going into Q4 and closing out 2025. All right. So,
Yeah.
Candace,
Before Sorry, and before we close out, because I know we're coming to time, Um, I add on to what Cynthia said is like when you look and see what that bar is, that invisible bar that you said. I recall because my peers used to, as soon as my boss said something, answer, answer, answer,
Mm-hmm.
and I that stressed me out. It stressed
Yes.
me out, but it also too put this unrealistic pressure, this invisible pressure on myself. Because
Yes.
at the end of the day, for me, I'm like, I don't have to keep up with them. If they decide to do that because this is how they feel to be seen, that's on them. For me, I'm like, no, because that also too sets the precedence with your boss.
Yeah.
Is if you constantly are answering them, that's what they're to expect. However, if you, I'm not going to sit there and say ignore it. That's not what I'm saying at
Right.
all. However, you have to prioritize, look and see what it is. Does it call for an immediate need, an immediate shift? Because that's all about adaptability. If it doesn't, you can always ask about it. You can always say, hey, I see you sent me this. Is this something that you need done now? Open communication. But it's crazy that you said that because it made me think about it. It made me think about it because I was like, yeah, I used to do that. I used to do that
Yeah.
because I felt like in order for me to be on my boss's good side, for them to pick me on projects and stuff, I had to respond. And at the end of the day, I still got selected for projects by putting that boundary in there. So,
Yeah.
but I will go ahead and start us off to end this out with just something quick and easy. Focus isn't found, it's chosen. Go choose your focus. Go and choose your focus. That's all I got for on my side.
Honey, that's powerful, right? Because focus is not always an easy thing. Remember your L-theanine black tea. All right. So, what I'm going to close this out with is what you give your time and your fire, since we're lighting the torch, shapes everything that you do, right? Protect both of them. And at the end of the day, success isn't about what you've built, it's about the fire that you've been able to sustain. So keep your fire lit, keep going, and be mindful of that as you navigate your career journey. All right. We'll be back next month as we continue to close out Q4.
And
Make it a great day.
it's breast cancer awareness month. So definitely make sure I got my little pink on
Ah,
for
we got
it.
pink in the
So it
background.
is, listen, background, but it's breast cancer awareness month. There are several places all around the US that is giving free mammograms for those who are uninsured. Because I know sometimes we feel like we can't get it or we don't have the options. Hey, the earlier detection is the better for us. So especially women of color, we are the highest. We are the highest. That is all I'm going to say. You can read the details. We are the highest fatality when it comes to this, for this cancer. So anyone who's a survivor,
Yes.
anyone's a survivor. But yes, I just wanted to throw that out there because it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Awesome. That's a great community service plug out there. All right, folks, it's been real. We thank you and we hope to see you next time. Have a good one.
Bye.